If you want to meet the educator, the teammate, or the veteran of the week, meet the guy who puts it all together. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on veterans, educators, and teammates. And we're visiting with Paul Gable, a reporter at the Myrtle Beach Herald. Good morning, Paul.
Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Thanks so much for coming in.
Glad to do it.
It is so exciting. You know, you were with us, golly, 6-7 months ago. And I tell you, not long after that, I got some great calls. And then that prompted me, after a couple of those phone calls, to follow up on your former boss, Steve Robertson, the publisher at the Orient Independent and the Loris Scene, who was a great two-day interview. We spent a whole hour with Steve, learned a lot about him, got some really nice calls about his interview. And I tell you, one of the great things is newspaper writing and reporting. Of course, recently, some of the amazing profiles that you've been doing, and the one you kicked off last week with the mayor of Loris.
Oh, well, that was fun. Of course, that comes from your ideas, which I applaud.
Stop that.
But the educator of the week, or the teammate of the week, or the veteran of the week, we're hitting areas that a newspaper doesn't normally hit, as far as a weekly, regular column on that type of thing.
Right.
And the educator of the week, I mean, I chose David Studemeyer from Loris because not only is he a principal of the Aner Conway Career Center, and of course he'll be going to the new Academy for Science and Technology, but he also has been he is in his fourth term as the mayor of Loris. He served one term as a councilman before that.
Mm-hmm.
So he has served the public both as an educator and as a mayor, and I thought that was just a neat combination and a neat story to tell to kick us off.
Mm-hmm. I tell you, the fascinating thing was last week, Paul, even though, of course, the Myrtle Beach Herald principally serves Myrtle Beach and some of the folks on the South Strand, we've done an amazing job expanding into the county. I think last week your veteran of the week was a convenience store operator in Loris.
And also a city councilman.
And a city councilman, that's right. I've been by his place before. I've got a Mountain Dew there. Your teammate of the week was from Green C. Floyd.
My teammate of the week was from Green C. Floyd's, and you know, that is the first time I've gone kind of out of our area per se,
mm-hmm.
because, well, as you know, we do Myrtle Beach, Socastee, St. James, and Carolina Forest,
right,
are our schools that we cover on a weekly basis. But it struck me that, first of all, Green C. Floyd is having a tremendous year girls team. They're 14-2.
Mm.
I've seen them play a few years, of course, when I was with Loris Scene, and I mean, I'm just impressed with what they're doing. And as far as I'm concerned, even though our circulation, we don't actually go out into that area with boxes or what have you. There are people that read us out there.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I figure as long as we're within the county, that's good enough, because I think we just have that ability to cover that whole area.
Those are great stories. You know, whether you're a veteran of the week coming out of Myrtle Beach, you're going to have similar aspects to the veteran living in Loris, living in Aner, living in Boston. You're going to have some of those same similarities. Of course, Fred Portway, who was your veteran of the week before. It has just been fascinating to see these kick off and see these kick off with the panache. You've really turned them into an exciting opportunity for a lot of readers.
Well, it's first of all, it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 10 years in the Navy myself, as you know,
mm-hmm.
and so I have a talking basis, as you were talking about,
mm-hmm.
with veterans especially. But I think that only in the past few years, probably only with the ramp up to Iraq, have we really, as a country, embraced the fact, the service that people did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's what is it, a year now or less that the World War II Veterans Monument has been up, and yet there's probably not a group that deserves it more. And frankly, I'm trying to concentrate right now more on World War II veterans than others for obvious reasons. There's not that many left.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all, I mean, a World War II veteran's probably in his 80s anyway, or
mm-hmm.
you know, very high 70s to begin
mm-hmm.
with. So we're trying to catch those as quickly as we can. But the response, I mean, I get emails, I get calls. You know, you get calls at the paper, you get emails. Everybody's volunteering names of people and what have you.
Right.
And it's just, the response has been incredible.
Yeah, that is tremendous, Paul. Real quick about yourself. Are you an Horry County native?
No. I've lived here 21 years. Oh, a little over 21 years. We moved down here in 1983. which maybe qualifies me to be a native now after 21 years in the
surely a
area.
local,
right?
yeah.
But no, I originally come from the north. I grew up in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and graduated high school, college in New Jersey. Went to work originally in New Jersey, went into the Navy from New Jersey, and haven't been back to live in Jersey since. So.
Yeah, I think our director's from New Jersey, Rochelle. Have you all ever talked about New Jersey?
We just found out that we were both from the same state a couple minutes ago. Yeah.
Golly, that's a, you know, of course, there's so many aspects. I haven't been down here that long. You use the word we, Paul. You've got family in the area.
Oh, sure. Yeah, of course, my wife of almost 25 years now. Our youngest daughter is still with us, Christina. She's at home. Our middle child, our oldest daughter, Ashley, is a sophomore at Francis Marion, and there's my son who graduated Newberry College last spring and is a sports editor of the Newberry Observer now. So
you're kidding.
So we're all still in South Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. He followed in his dad's footsteps then, or did you follow in his?
It's probably fair to say we lead each other. You know, I mean, yeah, he certainly. He wanted to do that from the time he was in the 6th grade, from the time he was in the 6th grade, with no really prompting from me. I mean, he loved to write. He had a teacher that convinced him he could write.
Right.
He took that and ran with it and loved it. And then, but his initiative, I mean, he has already been to, he covers the Clemson Carolina game every year. He's done that for about 4 years now from the time he was in college. He's been to Panthers games. He hasn't been to a Falcons game. He's been to Falcons camp. Of course, you did the beach ball when he was still living at home or coming home on Christmas breaks and what have you from college. But he took that initiative and ran with it himself, and I mean, he loves it. He does a better job than his father.
I think you told me your son was on tennis scholarship originally in Newberry and possibly got off that, but was a tennis star here locally. Yeah,
he played here, and he played in Loris, and he was 3-time Regent Player of the Year out at Loris, and then he got a combination scholarship, academic and athletic, because a tennis team, especially a boys tennis team, only gets 4 full scholarships to give out for 9 to 11 players. So what you wind up with is a half scholarship. They split them up to get it, you know. But he had good enough grades to get academic. He didn't cost me any money to go to college.
That's great.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
And now you've got a daughter at Francis Marion. Of course, I guess there's in-state schools, there's the lottery tuition assistance, there's a heck of a lot of ways to help offset some of the old costs that folks in South Carolina were faced with.
There's a lot. Just to talk about that, you know, the Life scholarships or the Hope scholarships or the Palmetto scholarships that are funded by the lottery, you know, you can't afford to go out of state. Really,
yeah.
You stay in state, which is where you qualify for it, and it first of all, it does a good job of keeping some very talented scholars here within the state, and it provides $5,000 a year for the Life, which is what Ashley's got, and that's a big help.
That is tremendous. Paul, what brought y'all down here originally 21 plus years ago?
My son was born in 1981. We brought him home from he was born in December. We brought him home from the hospital. And from December 24th, I think, of that year, Christmas Eve, until like the 5th of January, the warmest we got at any time during the day was like 5 below. We had this cold wave smash. We were living in Boston. We had this cold wave smash, and I said to Kathy, "That's it. I've had it. I don't want any more of this." It took us a couple years, but we worked our way down.
That's hilarious.
We dodged. We ran from the cold weather.
Well, how did y'all pick Myrtle or Loris or?
Well, her family had come here a long time on vacations, and my family already owned a spot that my parents were eventually going to retire to down in Garden City. So, and we took our honeymoon here, and you know, I think it's one of the places that people from the north wind up.
Speaking of your parents, Paul, I think I saw, and I don't know if I read it too closely, I'm sorry to say, the profile you did on your father. What was that like, profiling your dad as a veteran of the week?
Interesting.
Did you learn anything about him that you didn't know?
Yeah, I think so. I learned a couple things that I didn't know, but and reiterated things that I did. But I think the most important thing is, for me, I did a Christmas week because to me, that's a week for family.
Right.
And I wanted to do that for him. And my father is 82, I guess, or 83, I forget. One of those ages. He's up there anyway. My parents, if they both make it till December the 1st of this year, will celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary.
Wow, 6-0.
Yeah, and you know, we thought 5-0 was a big deal, and here they are almost 10 years beyond it already.
Wow.
But, I mean, my father's been a very strong influence in my life, directly and indirectly, right up to today. And it was a way of giving back. You know, we talk about giving back to the community. It was a way of giving back to my father for one time. And I was really happy to do it and excited to do it.
That's tremendous. And your mom's still living and going strong.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them have been very lucky, very lucky. They really, my father's worn a pacemaker since he was 50, but it wasn't so much a heart disease. For some reason, his electrical circuitry in his heart stopped. His heart muscle is strong. He didn't have a heart attack or anything like that, but it will not beat without that pacemaker. But he's had that since he was 50, so that's 30-some years. He's on his 4th or 5th one or whatever it is now. Other than that, they really don't have any health problems, thank goodness.
Right.
You know, I mean, that can crop up at any time, but they've been very healthy and very good.
Let's keep our fingers crossed that'll remain. You know, Michelle Winston will be with us tomorrow from the Heart Association, pumping up the 11th Annual American Heart Ball coming up. And I remember a year ago, not long after joining the paper, Paul, you had a particular interest in heart disease because of something your son had been afflicted with.
Oh, yeah, my son was born with a very serious heart defect called transposition of the great arteries, for anybody who knows about it. And basically what that means is the two arteries, the one that pumps to the body and one that pumps to the lungs off the ventricles, were reversed. So he had two separate circuits. The only thing that kept him alive was a very big hole between his ventricles. And at 5 months of age, he had to be operated on or he was going to die because he was going into congestive heart failure. And then we had a lot of complications and what have you, and he spent quite a considerable number of months in the hospital thereafter, and then went on to get a tennis scholarship, you know. So, I mean, that's and you know, quite frankly, when you talk about the Heart Ball, you talk about the American Heart Association, we were on the cutting edge of research. The operation that he had at that time was only 2 or 3 years old.
Wow.
So there was no long-term prognosis.
Right.
You didn't have a clue as to what was going to happen, you know. But that was made be able to brought about. That was made possible by the amount of money that's donated to things like the American Heart Association and what have you for research in these specialized medical areas. And so I mean, yeah, we have a direct fondness for that. There's no doubt about it.
That's great. We're looking forward to seeing you and Kathy out at the Heart Ball this year. Share with the viewers what that's like. Of course, there have been so many things going on recently, Paul, and a lot of changes. And, of course, you've been real active on the sports side, originally coming onto the paper to focus primarily on sports, the county, on education, and some other key issues in the county. Recently, having taken on these 3 profiles, kicking off with Teammate of the Week, then launching Veteran of the Week, and obviously soon thereafter, last week, launching David Studemeyer with Educator of the Week. How do you go about, I know you said a lot of folks have contacted you about Veteran of the Week. How do you go about working with coaches and otherwise for Teammates of the Week and now making decisions as to who some of your educators will be? Well,
The Teammate of the Week is kind of interesting. I don't really work with the coaches too terribly much other than ask their permission to talk to the athlete after. Right. What I do is I go out to the games and watch games or matches or whatever particular sport there is. And you know, it's not one sport, right, and it's not one type of thing. All I'll do is just watch the athletes that are competing. And like I went into the St. James North Myrtle Beach game a week or so ago, and I didn't have a clue. I knew I was going to feature somebody from St. James that week because I'd only done one person from St. James to begin with, but I didn't know who. And I just watched the ball game until somebody stood out to me. And when I do the Teammate of the Week, I'm not looking for the star. It might be the star. It might not.
Right.
But I'm looking for a person who, to me, plays an all-around game and makes a significant contribution to his team, win or lose. His or her team, let me put it that way, win or lose. So sometimes a person's a star because they're the hardest working ball player on a club. Sometimes they're a star because they have natural ability. But you'll always find, whether they stand out or whether they're back in the background, you'll always find those people who play after play, minute after minute, second after second, that they're out on a field or a court or a diamond or whatever they're playing, that are giving everything they have. And those are the kind of people that I like to bring. Like next year, we did this at the end of football season or right towards the end or beginning of basketball season, right ever. Next year, you're going to see a lot of linebackers and linemen and that kind of thing that are teammates of the week, because that's what I'll look for when I go out. Everybody reads about the backs and the ends anyway, and I don't mean to demean them.
Sure.
But let's give a little print to those people who don't get it too much.
Those are great words. Absolutely. And, of course, now for educator, you can go after a heck of so many schools in the area. Of course, Horry, Georgetown Tech, and Coastal Carolina, and Webster, along with, when you think of educators, you can think of coaches or principals or otherwise. But there's a heck of a lot of folks to be able to tap for a component like that.
There's a lot of folks, and there's a lot of ways to tap it. And, of course, every high school or every school, every public school in Horry County has their own teacher of the year. I may wind up asking students, who do you like as a teacher and why? You know, I mean, I'm at different basketball games and crowds and wrestling matches and what have you. You know, who do you like as a teacher and why? And I may come up with it that way. I'm not, again, there are times when we will focus on somebody that is made teacher of the year or what have you that everybody's focusing on. But hopefully there'll be a lot of times when we'll focus on people that haven't been focused on in a while or what have you. And I have no special criteria at all, but I'll just ask around. I mean, I have a lot of teachers and what have you that I know that I might say, who impresses you? And we'll work on it that way. We'll come up with names that maybe nobody's heard about before.
Share with the viewers, Paul, what it's like attending county council meetings, staying on top of that, attending school board meetings. I mean, you're having to deal with folks, a lot of them are elected officials in both of those instances, the Board of Education, the county council, the city council. I know recently you've been doing a profile and focus on the deposition Mayor McBride had given to counsel for the NAACP in a lawsuit. It's fascinating. You're dealing with a lot of elected officials there. Is that ever intimidating?
No, not at all. And probably one of the reasons is I'm 58 years old, Greg. I mean, you know, I'm beyond being impressed by titles and positions, okay? But no, it's not. It's quite interesting. At times it's frustrating. And I say that from the sense of, some of the behind-the-scenes things that are going on to produce these votes and what have you. And to me, though, what I'm interested in, and I don't care talking about elected bodies now, I still believe, I'm still naive enough to believe at my age that an elected body is out there to serve the general public, all the public. You can't do it every time with everything, but I think your decisions have to be geared that way. But as far as interviewing them and what have you, I'm going to tell you a little secret, and this is the truth. They can say what they want to about the newspapers, and Liz Gilland blasted a particular media outlet in this county the other night from the county council dais. But they like to get their names in the paper, too. They're happy to talk to you.
That's an interesting point, and that would cover all, across the board. It's an opportunity for them. I mean, you're serving in a watchdog capacity as well as an information teller. You're providing an objective viewpoint, whether you're writing for the Herald or the Sun News or the Horry Independent. Your goal is to try to provide that objective viewpoint.
And whether you're doing broadcast television news,
you got it,
or broadcast radio news. Now that's not the same thing as these talk shows on talk radio. That's not news. That's opinion. As we found out with Armstrong Williams, sometimes it's paid for opinions. Okay, that's not news. But news, yes, you try and present both sides. And you do act as a watchdog. There's no doubt about it. A perfect case in point is what Tom did, Tom O'Dare, the other week about the DRC. He's the person that came up with the information that said, maybe Barry Landreth isn't the guy to head this, and here's why. And he did that. And another piece that Tom did that, to me, the best story that I have read in a newspaper in a very long time is the story Tom did about the Myrtle Beach that the tourists don't see. That was brilliant reporting. In my opinion, it was brilliantly done, and Tom's not paying me to say that.
No, good. He is the editor, but that's right. That was a tremendous piece. And, of course, it was prompted by being at a city council meeting, hearing someone get up to complain about her part of town, which she didn't feel was getting the kind of respect it deserved or the kind of attention that it deserved, and getting out there and potentially being in danger.
Yeah, Tom told me that when he was out there, a couple guys came over and said to him, you better get out of here, it's going to get dangerous. We don't need that kind of thing in Myrtle Beach. And if we can point it out, and I understand that there was a fairly big police swing through some of those areas within a day or two afterwards. That's the watchdog part of what a newspaper does. You know, maybe the public officials aren't looking at it for whatever reason because they're engrossed in something else. But if we can bring out a problem here, a problem there, or what have you, and it comes to the limelight, then people will step in to do something. And I thought Tom just did a brilliant job on that.
It was a tremendous piece, and the power of it. Oftentimes you'll read a news story and be impacted. I mean, you read a column and be impacted in an emotional sense. Rarely do you read a news story and be impacted. But, you know, the closing on that of Rosemary, or whatever name it was, going back into a setting and going back into her life of fear is a powerful one.
Right. And nobody should have to go through that in their own home.
That's right.
Nobody. And he did a great job. But, you know, going back a minute to county council meetings, the truth is that, you know, we have an agenda and we know what there's going to be certain votes on certain things. And obviously sometimes you're there to cover a particular issue, like maybe the arena, the third reading on the arena and the fact that we're not going to get an arena built. But the truth is, as far as I'm concerned, and like Tom, with that article he did on the neighborhood, you go into a county council meeting or a city council meeting or school board meeting with one thought. Well, this looks like it might be an interesting topic for a story. And oftentimes you'll come up with a story on something totally different that you didn't even expect, like he did again with that. Right. So I try not to have too many preconceived ideas, okay? I go in with an open mind, whether it's a sports contest for looking for a teammate of the week, or whether I'm looking for an educator, or whether I'm writing a story about a council meeting or what have you. Right. I try and go in very, very open in my mind. And sometimes it surprises me what winds up in print, I'll tell you the truth.
You've been following very closely the terminal, which is scheduled to be built, the new terminal right behind my studio here.
Yes.
A little ways potentially down the road. I was talking to somebody the other day talking about gumbo out there and saying it sounds like a heck of a lot of gumbo out there that folks may not have thought about. What's that like, you know, when you get into a story and recognize things that potentially are not in line with a lot of stories that come out about the same subject? How do you go about making sure that you cover all your bases, that you're doing all the appropriate research? How do you just dig real deep into stories? You dig
and you try, especially with the terminal now, you try and find out the facts. Of course, why they didn't do a site study and discover that maybe this was unstable land for building a building like that when they first thought of the project is well beyond me. Why it wasn't discovered until they started to clear the land. But that probably added another $14 million to their cost, because I understand it's 275,000 cubic yards of that stuff has to be moved and replaced by other land to make it solid enough to build on. But I'll be honest with you, I always thought that to me the funding always sounded a little short, and I would routinely I call the people that are their bond consultants up in New York City. I've been on the phone with them several times. Of course, I've listened to and asked Bob Kemp questions about the numbers and what have you at the different council or after the different council and administration meetings and what have you. When they came out with $185 million, it sounded to me that it was short. Now, of course, even after 6 weeks after I talked to their bond people the last time, which was in August, over at a meeting that they had at the airport, I said, "Are you firm with the $185 million?" Yeah. Then all of a sudden we find out we got gumbo and a few other things, and the cost of construction materials are going up, and we are adding $50 million to the cost overnight almost. You know, you try and keep on top of things. You keep on top of what's happening, and it's just like it also depends on how it's presented. I'll give you a quick example. You just probably have seen on television and what have you that the airport was up 15% in passengers over last year. Right. Now that sounds like fantastic growth. Until you go back through the figures and you find out that we had 793,000 people and planemates, the people that went on a plane to leave here in the year 2000, and we only had 770,000 this year. So what does that mean? It means we're still not up to where we were in the year 2000. So while our growth between 2003 and 2004 might have been 15%, our growth from 2000 to 2005 is actually negative 3%. But you've got to dig out the numbers. You take what people give you, you back check that. I don't care who's giving it to you, you try and back check it. Go to another source and find out, and then possibly go to places like the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission. Of course, the airport's very good about turning out those numbers, and they wanted to just feature that one year. But I believe, especially for something like that, if we need a new terminal, let's see what the trend is. Not what last year was. What's a 5-year trend? What's a 10-year trend? What's a 5-year projection? If we grew 15% last year and just, you know, and came up short, not too terribly short, but short of what our peak year was, will we see 15% growth this year? No. I'll say that categorically right now. And none of us know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do 15%. I don't think we'll do half of it. I think we'll just barely be above where we were in 2000 if we crack that.
We got less than a minute, Paul. What's the best way for a viewer to get in touch with you? Is it calling the newspaper if they've got an idea of a good story, a veteran, an educator, a teammate to focus on, or is it just you getting out in the community meeting folks is the best way?
Well, no. I mean, if somebody wants to get in contact with me, they can either email me at paulgable@thelocalnewspaper.com, or they can call here at 626-3131 to the office of the Herald, and they'll take a message and get it to me. Okay. Anybody that ever wants to talk to me about anything, you know, please call, email, whatever they want to do, because I'm happy to hear from people. Because a lot of your stories start with statistics, facts, tips, or what have you from other people. They don't come from you going out there. You just take what somebody else gives you and go with it from there.
And then you research. Thanks so much for being with us this morning, Paul.
You're welcome, Greg. It was a pleasure to be here again.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Paul Gable coming up next. You heard him say it. He wants you to call him. He wants you to get in touch with him, whether it's him or any other writer, any newspaper in town. If you got an idea, you need to get in touch with someone to get it out. It's important. Give him a call at 843-626-3131, or you can email him at pgable@thelocalnewspaper.com. Whether it's a veteran or a teammate, any sports player, any sport, you heard him talk about it, javelin throwers or shot putters, or football players or 100-meter swimmers, take the time to give them a call. Obviously, veterans, educators, and teammates, it's an amazing opportunity for Paul to profile you or someone you know.